Hello, everyone. Here we are. We're going to do Deuteronomy 21 tonight, but I want to touch base on what we were talking about from Deuteronomy 19, and I'm going to read it to you. If a malicious witness takes the stand to accuse someone of a crime, the two people involved in the dispute must stand in the presence of the Lord before the priests and the judges who are in office at the time. The judges must make a thorough investigation, and if the witness proves to be a liar, giving false testimony against a fellow Israelite, then do to the false witness as that witness intended to do to the other party. You must purge the evil from among you. The rest of the people will hear of this and be afraid, and never again will such an evil thing be done among you. Show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. And I had mentioned that we have laws built around that law. Today, which, that's what the death penalty is, etc. We don't particularly take a hand from a thief like they do in some countries, but we do have the death penalty in certain states, okay? So I think, now I'm not sure how or why I digressed, but I had mentioned how Jesus did not come to eradicate this law. It's still something that can be used to make laws from, certainly. Okay, what Jesus did was he came to fulfill the law's desire for the death of those who break the law. Okay, so he died for all of us because we've all broken the 10 Commandments. So he died and fulfilled it, but he didn't come to abolish it. It says that over and over. He did not come to abolish the law. And sometimes when we hear Jesus saying, you've heard it said an eye for an eye, but I tell you, and you think, oh, this is going to be a new law. No, what he's doing is he's saying, but I tell you, look at your heart. Okay, now the scripture that I had touched upon was where Jesus said, if someone does evil to you, don't, turn the other cheek. Don't fight back with them. Okay, that's a hard saying because most of us want to at least say something back to someone who does something evil to us. Okay, but Jesus is trying to get to your heart. Okay, because if he can get your heart clean and get you to examine the attitudes in your heart, then you most likely are not going to be out there perpetrating evil against other people, okay? So that's where Jesus was at when he was teaching. He wasn't coming and ripping up everything the Lord had said. The Lord is his Father. He was coming to honor it. But he was trying to tell you how to not be a hypocrite and how to not find yourself in a situation where you've hurt someone and you could be in big trouble, okay? But I want to go into that, don't repay evil for evil. Turn the other cheek. If they want your coat, give them your shirt, or your shirt, give them your coat too. And I've discussed this before with you. And what it means basically is get out of the way of the sinner and let the Lord get in there and see what's going on, and the Lord will repay. Okay, now it is super godly if you can resist fighting back. Super godly. Not all of us are there, okay? So I just want to kind of point that out, that's what that particular scripture was saying, okay? That Jesus is trying to get to your heart. He's never talking about, well, I mean, he does touch on things, but in these examples, like with the adultery, I tell you, if you look at a woman, you've already committed, with lust in your heart, you've already committed adultery. He's trying to talk to you about your heart and where your heart is at, okay? So once again, while not abolishing or ripping up the law, he's telling you how to avoid getting in bad situations and what is pleasing to the Lord, which is a clean heart, which we must have. Otherwise, we just walk around like hypocrites, like the whole world, okay? So let's get going with, I hope I answered that. It's the best I can do right now. But let's get going with Deuteronomy 21. And you remember, this is still the sermon that Moses is giving before they go to claim the promised land, okay? Which means they're going to have to fight. They're going to have to go to war, okay? So this is that sermon, so here we go. If someone is found slain, lying in a field in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess, and it's not known who the killer was, your elders and judges shall go out and measure the distance from the body to the neighboring towns. Then the elders of the town nearest the body shall take a heifer that's never been worked and has never worn a yoke, and lead it down to a valley that has not been plowed or planted, and where there is a flowing stream. There in the valley they are to break the heifer's neck. Ow. The Levitical priests shall step forward, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister and to pronounce blessings in the name of the Lord, and to decide all cases of dispute and assault. Then all the elders of the town nearest the body shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley, and they shall declare, our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Accept this atonement for your people Israel, whom you've redeemed, Lord, and don't hold your people guilty of the blood of an innocent person. Then the bloodshed will be atoned for, and you will have purged from yourselves the guilt of shedding innocent blood, since you've done what is right in the eyes of the Lord. So once again, an animal paying the price for something ugly in the way of mankind, okay? I will tell you, when I went to Washington, D.C. on a business trip, I went to the Vietnam Wall, and I was standing there, and there are a lot of monuments, and, you know, I could, I don't know how to put it, but I could hear the blood crying, either from the wall, it was from the ground. I could hear the blood in the ground crying, and I realized with full force how much blood was shed for this country and for the freedom that we have. And as we were slaughtering Indians to take this country, there's so much blood in the ground of this country. And when you go to someplace like Washington, D.C., and you stand among the monuments, and for me, it was standing next to the Vietnam Wall, you'll know the prices that were paid to win this country. And, you know, before you get upset about the Indians, I want to tell you something. Somebody put something up on a wall today. It was my friend Kren, and it was the different philosophies from different groups. And it was basically the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it was in their own language and verbiage. And I noticed that the Native American one, the Indian one, was something very similar, like don't bring harm to others, or and thereby harm yourselves, or something like that. And I thought, wow, talk about man failing to live up to his own precepts, because the Indians were vicious. I mean, yes, we came in. Oh, it was something about harmony. That's what theirs was. It was about live in harmony with everybody. And I'm thinking to myself, what? They wouldn't let us settle. And we had just come on the Mayflower, and we needed to settle. Now, in the beginning, they were friendly to us, and they showed us what to plant here, and they helped us. But as time went on, there were many tribes of Indians who would not let us settle. They would not live in harmony with us. And so they would go in, and you see these stories all the time, in the movies about the Indians would come in and wipe everybody out like there's the lone woman and the man on the prairie with their little kids, and the Indians come and slaughter them all. And this was a reality. So I found that statement extremely hypocritical, as well as the Indians gave as good as they got. They shamed us. They took our men and mutilated their dead bodies and humiliated them in death. Okay, all of this very unnecessary, and all of this not living in harmony with your brother. Okay, so I'm not against the American Indians, and I'm not particularly for, well, yeah, I am for the people who came on the Mayflower. I have ancestors who came over, direct ancestors. So, we need to really understand what happened. There is a lot of blood in the ground, okay? And I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but bear with me, okay? I think what I'm trying to say is when there's innocent blood that's shed, it spoils the land, okay? And I would say probably the whole earth is spoiled by the shedding of innocent blood. It's really egregious. I didn't know it made a difference. Except when you look into the Bible, you see right here that innocent blood must be atoned for. Okay? Here we go. When you go to war against your enemies and the Lord your God delivers them into your hands and you take captives, if you notice among the captives a beautiful woman and are attracted to her, you may take her as your wife, bring her into your home and have her shave her head, trim her nails, and put aside the clothes she was wearing when captured. After she's lived in your house and mourned her father and mother for a full month, then you may go to her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. If you're not pleased with her, let her go wherever she wishes. You must not sell her or treat her as a slave, since you've dishonored her. If a man has 2 wives, and he loves one but not the other, and both bear him sons, but the firstborn is the son of the wife he doesn't love, when he wills his property to his sons, he must not give the rights of the firstborn to the son of the wife he loves in preference to his actual firstborn, the son of the wife he does not love. He must acknowledge the son of his unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double share of all he has. That son is the first sign of his father's strength. The right of the firstborn belongs to him. If someone has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother and will not listen to them when they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders at the gate of his town. They shall say to the elders, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He won't obey us. He's a glutton and a drunkard." Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. You must purge evil from among you. All Israel will hear of it and be afraid. So we can probably assume that nobody was blowing it with these kinds of punishments being laid forth, okay? If someone guilty of a capital offense is put to death and their body is exposed on a pole, you must not leave the body hanging on the pole overnight. Be sure to bury it that same day, because anyone who is hung on a pole is under God's curse. Do you remember that Jesus was hung on a pole? Poles are made of wood. The cross was a pole. You must not desecrate the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. I'm going to read that again. Be sure to bury it that same day, because anyone who's hung on a pole is under God's curse. Anyone who's hung on a pole is under God's curse. And they took Jesus down after he died. They didn't leave him up overnight. You must not desecrate the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. Jesus was cursed for us. Deuteronomy 22. If you see your fellow Israelites' ox or sheep straying, don't ignore it, but make sure to take it back to its owner. If they don't live near you, or if you don't know who owns it, take it home with you and keep it until they come looking for it. Then give it back. Remember, there's no finders, keepers, losers, weepers, biblically. None. Do the same if you find their donkey or cloak or anything else they've lost. Do not ignore it. In other words, pick it up, take it home, save it for them. Don't just leave it there, lying in a ditch if it's their coat. Pick it up, brush it off, take it home, and make sure you return it to them. And if you don't know whose it is, wait till they knock on your door and ask about it. If you see your fellow Israelites' donkey or ox fallen on the road, don't ignore it. Help the owner get it to its feet. A woman must not wear men's clothing, nor a man wear women's clothing, for the Lord your God detests anyone who does this. There it is. If you come across a bird's nest beside, and I'm guilty of it too. I've worn men's clothing quite a bit in my life. I don't think I have in the last 40 years, but when I was younger, come on, rock and roll, right? If you come across a bird's nest beside the road, either in a tree or on the ground, and the mother's sitting on the young or on the eggs, don't take the mother with the young. You may take the young, but be sure to let the mother go so that it may go well with you and you may have a long life. So if you want eggs to eat, I guess you can take the eggs, but you don't take the mom. When you build a new house, make a parapet around your roof so that you may not bring the guilt of bloodshed on your house if someone falls from the roof. That's practical. Make sure no one can fall. Because I remember I told you in Jerusalem, they used to sit on their roofs. That was normal practice, okay? So apparently that's still the practice. The roofs were flat. People would go up on them. So put something around it. It's saying here, put a parapet around your roof so you don't bring the guilt of bloodshed. So God's really big on innocent blood not being shed to spoil the land. Do not plant 2 kinds of seed in your vineyard. If you do, not only the crops you plant, but also the fruit of the vineyard will be defiled. Don't plow with an ox and a donkey yoked together. That would be very weird to see an ox and a donkey trying to, that would be weird. Do not wear clothes of wool and linen woven together. And we don't have anything like that I've ever seen. Make tassels on the four corners of the cloak you wear. I think that's for remembrance. If a man takes a wife and after sleeping with her dislikes her and slanders her and gives her a bad name, saying, I married this woman, but when I approached her, I didn't find proof of her virginity, then the young woman's father and mother shall bring to the town elders at the gate proof that she was a virgin. And the way they did this was they had a particular kind of sheet that the lovers would consummate their marriage on, okay? And so there should most likely be blood on it, and that would be the proof of her virginity, and the parents would hold that as far as it says here. Then her parents shall display the cloth before the elders of the town, and the elders shall take the man and punish him because he lied about her. Then they shall fine him 100 shekels of silver and give them to the young woman's father, because this man has given an Israelite virgin a bad name. She shall continue to be his wife. He must not divorce her as long as he lives. Shame on him, right? If, however, the charge is true and no proof of the young woman's virginity can be found, she shall be brought to the door of her father's house, and there the men of her town shall stone her to death. Once again, that's the penalty, so you know nobody's going to put themselves in that position, right? She's done an outrageous thing in Israel by being promiscuous while still in her father's house. You must purge the evil from among you. If a man is found sleeping with another man's wife, both the man who slept with her and the woman must die. You must purge the evil from Israel. Now in Arabia, they still kill them. I met a woman who lived in Arabia for years and years and years and years. She was not Arabian. She was American. Caucasian American, and she said they lived near the clock square where there was a big clock in the square, and every day at noon they took people out there and murdered them, you know, executed them every day. She said it just made her shudder. You don't ever want to see an execution. They say it will traumatize you for life, and I'm sure it does. So yes, in Arabia, the man who slept with the woman and the woman, they are both executed. I guess it's not murdered, I guess it's executed, but that's their law. And these laws are deterrents, okay? I mean, I'm sorry, a law like that, you couldn't show me anyone worth dying for. I know that sounds terrible and very unchristlike, but I'm talking about for having an affair with them. You know, not laying your life down for them for some noble cause. I'm talking about, you know, I would be keeping my eyes to myself before I would get involved with anybody if they were going to cost me my life, okay? If anyone happens to meet in a town a virgin pledged to be married. Okay, so don't take someone who's pledged to be married, because then, you know. But if out in the country a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married and rapes her, only the man who has done this shall die. Now, that's amazing, because there are countries like Iran and Iraq that lock the woman up, you know, like it's her fault that she got raped. So let's read that again. But if out in the country a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married and rapes her, only the man who's done this shall die. Do nothing to the woman. She's committed no sin deserving death. This case is like that of someone who attacks and murders a neighbor. For the man found the young woman out in the country, and though the betrothed woman screamed, there was no one to rescue her. So she's done nothing wrong. She simply got raped. And he gets put to death for it. If a man happens to meet a virgin who's not pledged to be married and rapes her and they're discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. That's a lot, folks. He must marry the young woman, for he's violated her. It's like you break it, you buy it. He can never divorce her as long as he lives. A man is not to marry his father's wife. He must not dishonor his father's bed. All right, Deuteronomy 23. No one who's been emasculated by crushing or cutting may enter the assembly of the Lord. That means the testicles of a male. No one born of a forbidden marriage, nor any of their descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord, not even in the 10th generation. No Ammonite or Moabite or any of their descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord, not even in the 10th generation, for they didn't come to meet you with bread and water on your way when you came out of Egypt. Remember? They asked, can we go through your land? And they hired Balaam, son of Beor, from Pethor in Aram Naharaim to pronounce a curse on you. Remember that whole story. However, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam, but turned the curse into a blessing for you, because the Lord your God loves you. Don't seek a treaty of friendship with them as long as you live. Don't despise an Edomite, for the Edomites are related to you. The Edomites also would not let them pass through. This is Esau's line, Jacob's brother. Don't despise an Egyptian, because you resided as foreigners in their country. The 3rd generation of children born to them may enter the assembly of the Lord. Okay, so the 3rd generation of children born to Edomites or Egyptians may enter the assembly of the Lord. So that would be someone's great-grandson, father, son, or grandson. When you are encamped against your enemies, keep away from everything impure. If one of your men is unclean because of a nocturnal emission, like a wet dream, he is to go outside the camp and stay there. But as evening approaches, he's to wash himself, and at sunset, he may return to the camp. Designate a place outside the camp where you can go to relieve yourself, so go to the bathroom. As part of your equipment, have something to dig with, and when you relieve yourself, dig a hole and cover up your excrement. For the Lord your God moves about in your camp to protect you and to deliver your enemies to you. Your camp must be holy so that he won't see among you anything indecent and turn away from you. We have a holy God, okay? If a slave has taken refuge with you, don't hand them over to their master. Let them live among you wherever they like and in whatever town they choose. Don't oppress them. No Israelite man or woman is to become a shrine prostitute, and we know what those are. You must not bring the earnings of a female prostitute or of a male prostitute into the house of the Lord your God to pay any vow, because the Lord your God detests them both. Meaning he doesn't like the practice of prostitution in male or female, and he detests the money that comes from it, okay? It's all vomit to him, okay? Shows you, though, how the more things change, the more they stay exactly the same. There were male shrine prostitutes or male prostitutes, okay? Yeah, because it's saying you must not bring the earnings of a female prostitute or of a male prostitute into the house of the Lord. And the sentence before that is no man or woman is to be... Okay, so men can be shrine prostitutes too. They won't be bearing children for sacrifice, but they can still be shrine prostitutes. Do not charge a fellow Israelite interest, whether on money or food or anything else that may earn interest. You may charge a foreigner interest, but not a fellow Israelite, so that the Lord your God may bless you in everything you put your hand to in the land you're entering to possess. If you make a vow to the Lord your God, don't be slow to pay it, for the Lord your God will certainly demand it of you, and you'll be guilty of sin. But if you refrain from making a vow, you'll not be guilty. Whatever your lips utter, you must be sure to do, because you made your vow freely to the Lord your God with your own mouth. If you enter your neighbor's vineyard, you may eat all the grapes you want, but don't put any in your basket. If you enter your neighbor's grain field, you may pick kernels with your hands, but you must not put a sickle to their standing grain. So go ahead and have a snack, but don't start reaping from their crops, okay? All right, or bring a basket over to someone's blueberry bush in their yard and start filling it up with blueberries. Like, you can have a bite or two, but beyond that, no. All right, last one for the night, Deuteronomy 24. If a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him because he finds something indecent about her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her and sends her from his house, and if after she leaves his house, she becomes the wife of another man, and her second husband dislikes her and writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her and sends her from his house, or if he dies, then her first husband who divorced her is not allowed to marry her again after she's been defiled. So there isn't going to be any going back once you're divorced. That would be detestable in the eyes of the Lord. Don't bring sin upon the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. That's interesting. So we could look at Ben Affleck because, well, he wasn't married to J-Lo, but he's re-engaged to her now many, many, many years later. But let's say he was married to her, and then she went and married the 2 or 3 or 4 other guys that she's been with, and she divorced them, and now she's going to remarry Ben Affleck. In the Old Testament, that was frowned on. God didn't like it. He said he detested it. Today, we're free in Christ, okay? But this was the old law, was, you know, she shouldn't be going back to a man and marrying him again after she's sort of like legal cheating. Like, I'm going to divorce you so I can cheat with 4 other husbands, then we'll get back together. We do it today, and we have the grace of God, but God is saying he doesn't like it, okay? As far as his personality or what he set out for the Jews to be like, he said no. Do not bring sin upon the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. Okay, so that was the end of that paragraph. It says that would be detestable in the eyes of the Lord. Don't bring sin upon the land. If a man is recently married, he must not be sent to war or have any other duty laid on him for 1 year. He's to be free to stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he's married. Don't take a pair of millstones, not even the upper one, as security for a debt, because that would be taking a person's livelihood as security. A millstone is what they grind with. And if you've seen them, there's 2 of them. There's a smaller one on top and then a big one. And if you don't have both of them, you can't grind, okay? So he's saying don't do that, all right? If someone is caught kidnapping a fellow Israelite and treating or selling them as a slave, the kidnapper must die. And we still have that law today, okay? Kidnappers die, at least in the states that have the death penalty. You must purge the evil from among you. In cases of defiling skin diseases, be very careful to do exactly as the Levitical priests instruct you. You must follow carefully what I've commanded them. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam along the way after you came out of Egypt. Remember, he struck her with leprosy because she was gossiping with her brother against Moses. Moses went to God and said, look, we can't have her like this. You've got to cure her. So after 7 days, the Lord delivered her. I'm blowing bubbles again. When you make a loan of any kind to your neighbor, don't go into their house to get what's offered to you as a pledge. Stay outside and let the neighbor to whom you're making the loan bring the pledge out to you. Okay, so you don't go in the house looking around at everything they've got. Okay, that's kind of creepy. If you're making the loan, you're not like in their house looking around going, ooh, you know, what can you give me as collateral? No, you stay outside, let them pick something and bring it out to you. If the neighbor is poor, do not go to sleep with their pledge in your possession. Return their cloak by sunset so that your neighbor may sleep in it. Then they'll thank you, and it'll be regarded as a righteous act in the sight of the Lord your God. Don't take advantage of a hired worker who's poor and needy, whether that worker is a fellow Israelite or a foreigner residing in one of your towns. Pay them their wages each day before sunset because they're poor and are counting on it. Otherwise, they may cry to the Lord against you, and you'll be guilty of sin. Parents are not to be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin. Okay, so you know how we say, well, if kids are in school bullying others, it's the parents' fault. You know, the parents should be fined or punished. Well, you know, that sounds like a good plan, but it's just kind of, I think of that in terms of this. I'm going to read it again. Parents are not to be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin. Okay, so I don't know if that's a good example or not, but it sounds to me like making the parents responsible. Maybe bullying isn't a good one. Maybe I should up the age and say like a 17 or 18-year-old kid goes out and robs the liquor store and you find the parents. Nah. Okay, do not deprive the foreigner or the fatherless of justice or take the cloak of the widow as a pledge. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt and the Lord your God redeemed you from there. That's why I command you to do this. When you're harvesting in your field and you overlook a sheaf, do not go back to get it. Leave it for the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. So if you see like a little pile of wheat that someone has neglected to gather into the barn, just leave it there. So that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat the olives from your trees, don't go over the branches a second time. Leave what remains for the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow. When you harvest the grapes in your vineyard, don't go over the vines again. Leave what remains for the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt. That's why I command you to do this. And that's it. So I'll see you tomorrow for Deuteronomy 25. We'll probably finish Deuteronomy tomorrow, or we'll get pretty darn close to it. I love you. You have a wonderful evening. Remember, we're in the Old Testament. The Lord is getting a holy people for himself, and he's going to do it with some fearsome punishments so that people will be obedient, okay? And that's always the point of fearsome punishments, okay, is so that people will decline to do something rotten, okay? I love you. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll pick it up at Deuteronomy 25. Good night.